Hey guys, Art 2 here, and we're in week 4 now, and also that would mean assignment number 7 and 8 and homework. So I've provided videos for all these. We've talked about them in class. Number 1, number 2, number 3, bring as much work to class Monday as possible so that I can get those graded or ask you to do more work to them, because they're starting to pile up if you haven't turned in at least the first 2 weeks. By the fourth week, yeah, they're starting to get piled up. So you got to keep up on this and bring them all in on Monday. So we're going to talk about assignment number 7 and 8 and homework. They're all ink drawings. The pens are similar to Sharpies. Sharpies may be on the lower end of quality, but they'll work. An 08 size is the best. It's kind of in the middle, heading toward thicker than thin. You don't want a super thin one because it's harder to make the marks and you're going to work harder to get those marks. You want something that's kind of in the middle, but something that's not really thick. And I think that's the 08. 05, 08, but 08 I think is a good one. There's better pens to get. So if you're wherever you're looking for ink pens, you want to pick up something that isn't a Sharpie. It might be a better quality, meaning it makes marks easier or last longer or something like that. It's only 3 drawings, so you don't need a lot of pens. Maybe one would be okay for the whole thing. Maybe you want to get 2. All right, so the first assignment is ink techniques. This is where you're going to practice making the ink marks that make shading areas so that you can have a subject matter that has a shape to it. And then you're going to actually make an ink drawing of your choice that isn't practice, because now you're using the marks you have practiced with. And then the homework is an ink still life of grouped complex grouping, meaning basically fruit or grapes or something where there's a complex grouping of the same sort of shapes. And you're going to show the light and dark sides of those through your shading techniques, ink techniques. So when I go into Bing, ink technique drawings, they're showing you various ways to draw, and there's lots of little graphs here or examples of the ink making marks. What I'd like you to do is pick something round, because you can do something like this if you want when you're practicing. As you can see, they have, crisscross, wavy lines. Each example comes up with its own name sometimes. What I'd like you to really focus in on is round shapes like circles or eggs. Now I'll show you one of an egg over. This is not a bad circle practice. This is the squiggly lines or scribble lines that can make all kind of shading. So it's very dark back here, then a little lighter, and then light. Same with the stippling. This is stippling. Light here, and then it gradually gets darker as the ball goes around to the other side, and the light is not catching on the back side. And then, of course, you have your cast shadow. This is cross hatching, and that means that you're adding more and more crisscross hatching marks back and forth to make it darker and darker. It's because you're making the marks intense and close together There's more of them close together. That's where it gets darker. And the less of them, and you're leaving more space without marks, that's the lighter area. So that's how you get your shading marks, to show a shape. The ball has a shape to it because you have used the marks in this fashion. Very little here, a little more, 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 and then very intense in the back. Same with all the different kind of marks you're making. I'm going to show you the eggs now. And again, you have your squiggle marks. You have sort of cross-hatching. I think this is contour cross-hatching, where it starts working with the shape of the egg. You see how they're kind of going with the shape of the egg? And same with this one. This is contour lines that are going around in a certain way. So this is very intricate. It's a good way to do things, but I forget what this is called, but eh. And then you have your stippling here. Really, you know, between this area up here, and this is not bad, but you can make up your own marks too. All of them are representing the light showing on top of the egg, and then it gradually gets darker underneath with a little bit of a reflection area from, just like the video I showed on shading with light source, that there's a reflection area from the table on the bottom of the egg or a ball. So it gets a little lighter right there. That's helpful because when you put your cast shadow on the table underneath it, they separate themselves because you have this lighter area here from reflected light, and then you have your cast shadow under the table, under the egg on the table. Okay? Now you can go through these all day long and see many examples of working with pen. I'm saying that for the ink technique, do 4 or 5 of them anyway. So you can show me that you practice the marks and you understand how to make the marks darker where you want the shaded area and where you want them lighter on the light side of things. Okay? All right. I'm going to provide a video on that as well. Now, when you get to your ink drawings, they can get a little more intricate, like some of these things here. But you're still going to pick the marks you're making, whatever marks those are, and use those. So if I put stippling in, all these are made with stipple marks, okay? Yeah, relatively. Some of the stipple marks have lines in them for the fur here, but they're little tiny marks. Because the skull is the same thing, lots of stippling. It takes a long time to do it this way. But the stippling is little dots. Intense where you want it dark, not intense where you want it light. And that's all that is. That's how you're getting the shape of everything, is by putting those marks in. And you have to put some effort into this. This is a pretty intricate way of drawing. But if you look, this is all just dots. Very intense where you want the dark, very intense here. In fact, they might have just colored that in or marked it in completely with the pen, which is okay to do. You can improvise slightly. Let's still look at the scribble marks of the cross-hatching. How about that? This is the cross-hatching technique, where you're hatching the more crossed areas, going back and forth in several directions where you want it dark. And then where you want it light, you have less. And some places you don't have any. And that's giving you the shape of what you're drawing, okay? It's just because of the intensity of the marks you're putting down versus the less intensity or congested, whatever word you want to use, okay? That's what makes the shaded area versus where the light is catching. Of course, where you really want it white, you don't put any marks. And then you put a little bit more as you want something to be a round shape. But it's a gradual transition from light to dark sometimes. Okay? A lot of the time. So you have to have the patience to have a gradual transition. Okay, let's look at one more, which will be the scribble. And these are so cool. I love this way. And it's quicker. It's very quick, but you got to watch what you're doing. You have to have a good mindset about what you're going to draw. Maybe you take a very light pencil to give a shape of something and where the eyes might be in this particular drawing, and then you use the pen and then erase out any pencil that's left. But the scribble lines, intense in the dark area, not intense in the light area, maybe even left out like this. That's how they're creating this. It's super cool. All of these are like that. I think it's really creative, and it has a lot of character to it. It has some movement to it. Much more than the stippling, in my opinion. But so you want to first have a whole page of practice, stippling, cross-hatching, wavy lines, scribble lines, and the various other ones. You can find them on Bing by putting in ink technique drawings. And look for those eggs and then use those as a template. And then when you're going to draw something, you might want to look up the different ways: scribbling, stippling, cross-hatching, ink drawings, and then pick something you want to do and go ahead and give it a try. Okay? Now, for the homework, that's like I said, a complex grouping. Ink, let's put just fruit, because that's basically what that means. Like this would be a complex grouping. And you see the light is coming from the top right here because it's all lit up right there. And then the back side of these circular ball-shaped fruit is darker because there's more intense marks back there, and then less intense in the top. And the same with the stem and the leaf. They all are representing the light source through the different marks you're making, and how intense you're going to put those marks and where you're going to put those marks. It's all shown here. This is a complex grouping for homework, okay? Grapes are perfect for that. Or cherries or something like that, okay? Fruit anyway. Unless you're going to do a bowl of marbles, there's a complex grouping idea. Or a bunch of shells that are similar. How about that? You could do that. But you're going to still show their shape, right? Let's put shells and see what happens. I think it should be more of a still life than a study. These are basically studies where you're just putting them down like a scientific study, a journal or something. I think you should make a still life if you're going to use shells, and maybe more of the same shell rather than a bunch of different shells. But I'll leave that up to you. But have a complex grouping of something, and then a drawing, which is your choice, and then the ink techniques. So first the ink techniques, then your drawing, then your complex grouping, okay? All right, so let's leave it at that. We'll talk about this actually on Monday because we're going to work on this. So bring some pens and your paper and all your work from before, okay? And bring your schedule too. You never want to not bring most of the stuff you've been working with and on to class. If you need to do, don't come and say, well, I didn't know I needed to bring anything. Of course you do. It's art class. You're going to bring everything you're working with, everything you reference. Bring it to class, and your supplies if you have them. By the way, I'll be getting supplies for you guys on Monday, and or Tuesday, and then I'll have them for Wednesday, but I won't have them for Monday tomorrow. But I have plenty of other stuff if you need it. I'll share. All right. We'll talk with you later. See you tomorrow.